All right, so picture this with me. A political conference, pouring rain, thunder, and inside this big debate is raging about giving pensioners a heating allowance or not.
Sounds dramatic.
Oh, it is. Welcome to the UK Labour Party conference, everyone. And that scene I just set, that's the storm brewing around the winter fuel payment.
It's gone way beyond a simple payment, really. It's a symbol now of Labor's whole stance on social welfare and their struggle to balance, well, their ideals with, economic realities.
Exactly. And you know how much we love digging into a juicy political controversy. So let's get right into this whole winter fuel payment thing. Now, for anyone not up on the UK system, this payment is like a yearly bonus to help pensioners cover those crazy heating bills during the winter. It's been a real lifeline for many, especially those living on fixed incomes. But recently, the Labour government proposed a change.
They want to means test it.
Right, means test it.
Essentially meaning the government wants to, narrow down who's eligible. Instead of every pensioner automatically getting it, only those who also qualify for this separate benefit, it's called pension credit, will get the winter fuel payment.
And this one little change has caused a huge firestorm. The Labour Party conference became like the battleground for this debate with some pretty dramatic scenes, actually.
And all this is happening while there's an amber rain and lightning warning issued by the Met Office?
It's almost symbolic, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Like straight out of House of Cards, really.
Mm-hmm.
And with all that drama, the delegates actually voted against means testing the payment. But, and this is important, it was a non-binding vote.
More like a strong suggestion.
Exactly, one the government can choose to just ignore.
Which is exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, they've basically said they won't budge on this. Their reasoning is that tough choices need to be made to stabilize the economy, especially after inheriting, as they're calling it, a £22 billion black hole in public finances.
Right. Times are tough, everyone's tightening their belts, but the unions are pushing back hard, saying this is basically austerity, round two.
Yeah, and they're not mincing words. Sharon Graham, the General Secretary of Unite the Union, gave this powerful speech at the conference. She said, and I quote, "We won't get any gold badge for shaving peanuts off our debt."
Which got quite the reaction, I imagine.
Oh, people went wild.
And it really gets to the heart of what a lot of Labour supporters are feeling. Why are we cutting support for the most vulnerable when the UK is still, one of the wealthiest countries in the world?
And it's not just about the money itself, right? It's about the message this sends. Alan Tate, from the Communication Workers Union, said union phones have been ringing off the hook with calls from terrified pensioners. Imagine having to choose between heating your home or buying food.
That's the reality for many pensioners.
It's heartbreaking, really, and it taps into this anxiety about fairness, priorities.
Mm-hmm.
Labour MP Rachel Maskell said it straight up she's disgusted by how party elites get all these perks while pensioners are stripped of basic necessities.
It's not theoretical. This is people's lives.
Exactly, this is real. All right, so we've got the unions fired up, pensioners worried sick.
Yep.
What's the Labour government saying to defend this?
Okay, so their argument really hinges on two main points. First, they're saying, look, this isn't about abandoning anyone in need. They're pointing to their investment in something called the Household Support Fund, which helps low-income households as proof that they're committed to helping those struggling the most.
Okay, so that's one. What's the second point?
Second, they're really emphasizing their dedication to the pensions triple lock.
Now, for those of us who aren't, policy wonks, what exactly is the pensions triple lock?
So basically, the triple lock makes sure that pensions increase each year. And it's in line with whichever is highest, inflation, average earnings, or 2.5%. They're arguing that they're still protecting pensioners' income, even with this specific change to the winter fuel payment.
So they're trying to walk this tightrope between, fiscal responsibility and looking out for the welfare of their people. But does that justification really hold up, especially when you think about the potential fallout from all this?
Well, that is the million-dollar question. And this isn't just about economics. This is political dynamite.
It's easy to get caught up in the politics of it all, but at the heart of this are real people, like those pensioners Alan Tate talked about, terrified of a winter without heat.
Right, and this really hits on a nerve in the UK, especially with the history of Thatcherism.
It's like this debate is dredging up all this historical baggage.
Yeah, for a lot of union members, this isn't just about one payment. It's about decades of fighting these austerity measures that, let's be honest, often seem to target the working class.
Thatcher's policies back in the 80s really left their mark.
Absolutely, and there's a real fear that this is just the first step, back down that road.
So when you frame it like that, a potential return to austerity, it's no wonder there's so much anger. But let's step back for a second, try to understand the other side. The labor government keeps saying they have to make these tough decisions for the economy.
And look, their argument isn't completely off base. The economic situation they inherited is, well, it's pretty daunting. They feel like they need to show that they're being fiscally responsible, and sometimes that means making cuts, even if they're unpopular.
The question is, are they making cuts in the right places?
Exactly, and that's where things get really heated.
So let's dig into this claim that means testing helps them target those who really need the help, ensuring that these, limited resources are going to the most vulnerable pensioners.
On the surface, it sounds logical, right? I mean, you direct the money where it's most needed, but the thing is, means testing, well, it can be incredibly complicated.
Especially for, older folks who might not be comfortable with technology or all that bureaucracy.
Exactly, and we all know how complicated those applications can be. It's estimated that almost 1 million pensioners who actually qualify for pension credit, which would make them eligible for the winter fuel payment under this new system, don't even claim it.
That's a lot of people potentially missing out.
A huge number. And it just highlights this larger debate about universal benefits versus targeted ones. Right now, the UK system is kind of all over the place. Some things are universal, like free bus passes for older people, and then others are means tested.
So on the one hand, universal benefits are simple. Everyone gets them.
Yeah.
But maybe they're not, laser focused on those who need it most. On the other hand, you have these means-tested benefits, which sound more efficient in theory, but then you risk leaving people behind because it's too hard to navigate the system.
And it seems like no matter which way you go, there are downsides.
It really does feel that way, a classic dilemma.
Right. No easy answers. But this whole debate about the winter fuel payment, I think it might have much wider implications, don't you?
What do you mean?
Think about it. If means testing is seen as a success here, if the government cuts costs without, a huge backlash, it sets a precedent.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Suddenly, other universal benefits that pensioners rely on, like free bus passes, TV licenses, those could be next.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. That's a massive domino effect.
Right. This one policy decision could completely reshape the social safety net for older people in the UK.
It's like we're suddenly having this much bigger conversation, not just about pensioners, but about the future of social support for everyone.
Exactly, and that's why this debate has become so heated. It's not just about the money, it's about fundamental values, about the relationship between the government and its citizens.
Yeah, and if the model's already creaking under the weight of this one change, what does that say about the bigger picture,
Yeah.
The long-term viability of the whole system?
Well, that's the question, keeping a lot of policymakers up at night. The UK, much like a lot of other countries, is dealing with an aging population and a shrinking workforce. Fewer people paying into the system, more people needing support.
So something has to give. We can't just keep putting Band-Aids on a system that might need, like, a major overhaul. What are some of the solutions being tossed around?
There are a few ideas out there, each with their own, pros and cons. One option is raising the state pension age.
Makes sense. People are living longer, healthier lives. Maybe they can work a bit longer.
Right, but politically it's a tough sell. Imagine working your whole life and then being told, sorry, you have to delay retirement.
Yeah, and for those already retired on pensions that are too small to live on, raising the retirement age doesn't help them at all.
Exactly, it's a sensitive issue. Another proposal is increasing national insurance contributions. That's the Social Security tax that funds things like the state pension.
So put more money into the system.
Yep.
But wouldn't that hit lower earners harder, the ones already struggling?
It's a tough balance. And then there are economists talking about more radical changes, like a universal basic income.
Okay, now that's a big idea.
Right. Every citizen, regardless of age, employment, anything, gets a guaranteed income.
Sounds great on paper, but could the UK actually afford that, especially now?
It would be a massive shift, no doubt. And yeah, the cost is a major, major concern. Proponents say it would simplify the entire benefit system, provide a safety net for everyone, but the logistics, the cost, it's still up for debate.
It seems like there are no easy answers here at all. Every solution comes with its own set of problems.
That's just the nature of complex policy, unfortunately. No magic bullet. But that's exactly why having these conversations is so important. We need to think long-term, move beyond these short-term fixes, and really figure out how we want to support an aging population.
And that means, less political posturing and more actually listening to the people these decisions impact the most. What I'm taking away from this whole deep dive is it's not about the numbers, the budgets, it's about values.
Absolutely. What kind of society do we want? How do we balance individual responsibility and collective support? These are huge questions we need to be asking ourselves.
It's a big task, but hopefully our deep dive into this whole winter fuel payment debate has given you, the listener, a better sense of just how complicated this all really is. What started as a seemingly simple question about a heating allowance has really snowballed.
It's opened up this whole can of worms, political, economic, social issues. But remember, the point isn't to feel overwhelmed, but empowered. You've heard the arguments, the different sides, the potential consequences.
Don't let this be the end of it. Read the sources we provided, find different viewpoints, talk to people about it. Most importantly, engage. Make your voice heard because ultimately, these decisions affect us all.
At the end of the day, we're all stakeholders in this. The choices we make today will shape the future, so let's make them wisely.
That wraps up our deep dive into the winter fuel payment debate. Thank you all for joining us, and remember, this conversation doesn't end here.